Today I'll be soldering the lead wires on humbucker coils and assembling it. I've already got my coils wound up. So this black piece here is called the bobbin, and then the coil is wrapped onto the bobbins. So it's done. I've also completed my base plate. And for this humbucker, we'll be using 4 conductor leads. So 2 of these conductors will go to one coil, 2 will go to the other, and this 5th wire here will be for grounding the base plate. So first step is to get some solder on here. I want to tin this wire ahead of time, and that makes soldering them onto the leads, the coil wires, a lot easier. In addition, I want to add some solder to the base plate itself. And this is where I'll be anchoring the base plate grounding wire. This can be kind of a bear. You got to heat the base plate up with your solder iron for a little bit to get that solder to stick nice and tight. It doesn't always go easy. Paper tape or coil tape, whatever you want to call it, get that onto the coils. That'll protect them from solder spatter and dust, things like that. All right, so now that we've got these protected, put in my vise. So I'll solder the lead wires in place before I attach it to the base plate. Add the magnet and the spacers. Let's get that all attached. So I use the same color scheme that Seymour Duncan does. It seems to be kind of, I don't want to say universally accepted, but the reason I went with their color scheme and not a custom one or say Gibson or something like that is Seymour Duncan provides a whole pile of really well done cabling or diagrams or wiring diagrams for your guitars. And it's awesome to just be able to match it up. So when you're working with these tiny wires, it's super delicate. You have to be really careful that you don't accidentally sever the coil wire from the hookup wire. Or sorry, the coil wire. You can easily break it off. If it's at the start of the coil might be lost at that point. Is the end of the coil, you can take a wind off and get some slack back. After this, it's pretty, at least my humbuckers are built like a tank compared to a lot of them. Generally, you'll take your tiny, it's the size of a hair, you'll take your lead wires and attach those directly to your hookup wire, and that just gets taped to the side of the coil in most assemblies. I've never liked that, so instead I use more like a fender method to attach my humbuckers, my lead wires. The other thing you have to watch out for is too much heat from your soldering iron will cut that lead wire. You can burn right through it. All right, so I'm gonna give these wires just a minute to cool, and then I'll check continuity of my coils, make sure that I got a good solder joint there. Good. Good. So now I've got my lead wires attached to the humbucker. I can look at actually assembling it and getting this other wire attached to where it needs to go, the ground wire for the base plate. All right. So there's one more thing I like to do. Put a little piece of shrink tubing around this exposure here. It's not strictly necessary, but I think it really helps clean it up, and it holds those wires in place good so they don't get jarred around from you know, vigorous playing, or if the wire gets yanked on down the road, which could happen. I'll shrink that guy on there. So here you can see, leads are on. I still have this exposed. I'm actually going to bend this guy back and attach him to the, try to see. All right, so magnets added and spacer. Just gonna hold my coils up. Okay. It's hard to do this in film. So I use these little brass screws, same as traditional humbuckers. Some of the famous ones use these little brass screws. I like them too. They're kind of soft, but I like the way that they look aesthetically, and they hold the coil in place just fine. Yeah, you really want to make sure that that's attached, because going back in afterwards to reattach that thing can be a bear. Yep, good. Now we're at the point where we've got bobbins on here, magnets in place, coil wires are all soldered to the leads, and my spacer stays in there. We'll have our spacer in there. I can attach the other coil now. And there you go. Got it snugged up. Got my leads attached. It's nice and neat the way the cables go across. That's what I'm looking for. This tested good. Now I'm going to actually screw in the pull pieces. And there you go. Pulls in place. Coil wires are soldered. So now I'm gonna snug this guy down. Make sure my magnet's in place where I want it, which is touching everything. And there you go. Pickup is done. So next step will be wax potting, and then putting the cover and the top on it.